They've already got the cops on the street that are not cops or that are the military. They've already got the National Guard on the street. They already have all your information in D.C., and now they just get to decide what is and isn't over the line. That should scare everybody. You're nuts, dude. If this doesn't scare you, you're nuts. And the people you'd think would be upset about it are kind of cheerleading it. They think it's great. So isn't that fun?
Tim Dillon had some pretty harsh words for Donald Trump's big government takeover in Washington, D.C., and even slammed conservatives who are cheering on the power grabs. Now, as we know, Trump recently sent the National Guard into DC and assumed federal control of the city's police force. And he did so claiming that they need to get a handle on the rampant crime in the area. Now, in the coming days, the number of National Guard troops patrolling DC will more than double thanks to participation from other red states. So the roughly 800 DC National Guard troops already deployed in the capital will be joined by about 200 personnel from Mississippi, between 300 and 400 from West Virginia, and 150 from Ohio and 200 from South Carolina, beefing up a presence that has largely stood idle around typically low crime, tourist heavy areas in the city. Okay, so I would not describe it as low crime, and I think that's part of the problem, right? And everyone's gonna get mad at me when I talk about what I mean in just a minute, but let me just get through this and then I'll talk about that. So even though initial deployment orders said that the troops would not be armed, the reality is a little different from that. So the White House said in a statement on Saturday, this past weekend, that the National Guard troops may be armed consistent with their mission and training to protect federal assets, provide a safe environment for law enforcement officers to make arrests, and deter violent crime with a visible law enforcement presence. And what's also concerning is that despite the fact that Trump has a 30-day limit on maintaining power over DC, he has now claimed, falsely by the way, that he has authority to keep control indefinitely. So just real quick, Cenk, I wanna go back to the way The Hill kind of described DC. When you create a vacuum, when you deny the facts on the ground, and DC has had a problem with crime, particularly carjackings, right? When you just pretend like it's not a problem or the problem's getting better, so let's just leave it alone, people who live under those conditions and are frustrated and angry about it are going to sign off or be okay with authoritarian measures like this in the name of safety, okay? It doesn't mean that I support the idea of a militarized federal law enforcement force, basically bashing in people's skulls in DC. I don't want that. I wanted to prevent that, which is why when I covered those crime stories, I was trying to get the left in general, okay, not leftists, but just the left in general to understand this is the reality on the ground. And we need to find better solutions to deal with it instead of pretending like it doesn't exist. But anyway, go ahead, Cenk.
So I wonder if somebody else said something that is similar to Tim Dillon. We'll get to that in a second. But first, look guys, the number one problem here in this story is that the media is painting this as only two options. And unfortunately, the ideologues do agree with the media in this case. But I'm gonna tell you a third option that's infinitely better, okay? So option number one is there is no crime in DC, don't sweat it. It's no big deal. You don't have to bring in the National Guard. You don't have to bring in anyone because crime is imaginary and it's de minimis, right? The second point of view is the crime is so bad, you got to bring in the National Guard and maybe the Marines and maybe Space Force, and you have to have a complete takeover and burn our Constitution. Why are those the only two choices? Okay, and partly because the media is obsessed with the extreme left and extreme right, and that's what they say. So they're like, okay, no, here's another choice. The crime is real, it's significant in Washington. It's dropped a little bit, which we're happy about, although in kind of fishy ways, according to the reporting. But could we do more in Washington? Absolutely. So why doesn't the federal government do a quote unquote takeover of DC and hire 50% more cops? Okay.
Yeah, that would actually, because
so why do you need the National Guard? National Guard isn't supposed to be doing policing.
That's exactly right. Look, guys. Here's the other thing about what Trump is doing with the National Guard. The National Guard doesn't have the right to carry out the duties that local police or the Capitol Police would be carrying out. Now they can protect other federal agents, they could protect federal property, but it is not their jurisdiction to carry out local law enforcement matters. So that is to say that what Trump is engaging in is theater to a large extent, but also very authoritarian, right? Like the way that he's carrying this out is meant to create shock and awe. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the radical right loves what Trump is doing. And they're like, yes, finally, the tyrannical government is here. Wait, what? But they don't see the irony at all. And they're like, oh yeah, you guys during COVID made us wear masks. So take this, tanks on the street. Wait, but how does that actually further what you claimed were your principles? Hey, I don't want the government in my business, but you want tanks in the streets? And you think that's less government invasion than a mask? So look, you can say, hey, we weren't in favor of the mask and we're against government tyranny, and that's why we're also against the tanks, but give us more cops. Okay, I say, okay, that makes sense, right? But if you say that you're against government tyranny, but you can't wait for a military takeover, that doesn't make any sense at all. And I'm kind of happy to see that the radical right's pissed with Tim Dillon. Okay, good. I want you to be pissed with Tim Dillon, and I can't speak for him, but I'm happy to have you pissed at me because I don't want the radicals, right? And by the way, let's keep it real on this one. The radical left's gonna be pissed at us, right? Oh no, you called them radical. No, you no, only pretend one side has it. And they'll say 50% more cops. Are you crazy? No way, way less cops,
no,
right?
You do, you need more cops, sorry, you need more cops.
In the major cities, you need more cops.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the cops should go randomly attack black people or Latinos or whatever. They should actually do policing and we should demand accountability and policing. Look, I'm just gonna show you this G4 here video to show you, yeah, look, this is a theme that a lot of us are talking about.
And then we'll get to Tim Dillon.
Yeah. If you're a right winger, whoever hung a flag that said, don't tread on me, brother, this is the tyrannical government you were warning about, okay? And you think your enemy comes at you from the front? No, your enemy comes at you from the back, okay? So the Republicans that said, oh yeah, don't tread on me, watch out for tyrannical government, then now they're rolling out tyrannical government in the streets of our cities, and you're not noticing.
So that was August of this year. Let's hear what Tim Dillon just recently said about the issue of authoritarianism.
I don't love this takeover of the this militarized police. I don't love it. I do understand we have a crime problem in cities. I'm not blind to it. Somebody's got to deal with that. But it's got to be the cops, right? We don't need National Guard, or do we? I don't know that we do. All of the stuff that's happening right now, the militarized police, the Palantir building the list. I don't love all of this. It seems like the precursor to the next thing. And the next thing might be much worse than this one. This country really does have a fascist kind of wet dream where they like the idea of the military so much.
I don't want to see our military on the streets. And by the way, since Trump has already done this in Los Angeles, the National Guard didn't want to be there. They hated it, right? And in fact, they didn't have much to do because, again, it is not what they are tasked to do as members of the National Guard. They are not supposed to carry out the duties of local law enforcement. All they can do is protect, public property, federal property, and protect federal agents. But yeah, Cenk, I mean, you and Tim Dillon are very simpatico on this issue.
Yeah, and it makes sense because I bet you if you did polling, 60 to 80% of the country would land where Tim Dillon and I are.
Well, in fact, there is some polling of residents in Washington, D.C., and looks like they agree with Dillon. About 8 in 10 D.C. residents oppose Trump's executive order to federalize law enforcement in the city. A measly 17% support it. 61% also said that they feel less safe as a result of Trump's actions. Yeah, because it creates chaos, shock and awe. It's theater, it's more distraction from the Trump administration. Do I believe that Trump actually cares about people suffering from crime in Washington, D.C.? I don't. I do know that Trump desperately wants to stop taking jabs over his subservience to Israel and the fact that he engaged in a massive cover-up when it came to the Epstein files. So here you have it. Enjoy your distraction.
Yeah, I mean, there's the distraction, but there's something I'm more worried about, which is now he's talking about, well, maybe we don't vote in the ways that we used to vote, and now I have the military in the streets. That's a super dangerous combo. And so, look, the reason why we obsess about the Dillons and the Rogans and the Andrew Schultz and Theo Vons and stuff is because that middle is critical. Because if that middle goes towards Trump and they go, oh yeah, military in the streets. Oh yeah, let's change how people vote. Oh yeah, only the Republicans can win. Then we're screwed. And all of the left combined won't be able to do anything because we won't have a majority, right? But if you win the independents over and the podcasters look like they're on our side for now, right? Then when he tries to do something terrible with the voting process, we need those guys to say, oh, hell no, don't touch the voting and get the goddamn military. Look, not goddamn military, get the military off the goddamn streets, okay? So we don't need them there, they're for outside, they're supposed to protect us. I know they don't have much to do other than fight Israel's wars, but you're supposed to do policing in this country. So there's double worry. Last thing for me is, I'm curious what you guys are saying about this, because we do the show live, obviously 6 to 8 o'clock every night on YouTube. And we ask these live chats involve you guys. Does Trump's DC National Guard deployment concern you? 84% saying yes. Interesting, 16% saying no. I'm surprised that's that high, but that's why we do the polls. And we have a wide variety of people who watch the show, and that gives you a sense of it. All right, Anna.
Yeah. I mean, I'm worried about it. The one thing that gives me a little bit of, I don't want to say hope because hope's the wrong word, but Trump engaged in the shenanigans in Los Angeles. And that led to a lot of chaos, a lot of anger, protest demonstrations. It was terrible. But once people stopped paying attention, he's like, all right, I'm gonna pull the troops back. You know what I'm saying? Like he loves to put on a show and he loves to anger people. So there is a part of me that's hoping that this is gonna fizzle out. But yeah, he says provocative, terrible authoritarian things. So you shouldn't have your guard down and you should be very careful about what Trump purports he wants to do.
Sometimes he'll pull back, but he pulls back when he senses he's unpopular. So that's why we have to drive this issue home and win the middle and get the 80% on our side. Otherwise, it endangers our elections. And that's the worst case scenario.
Right.
We can't have it. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.